Hey guys, it's Julia. So today's video is going to be a video basically synthesizing all my tips and tricks on how to get very pigmented, perfect eye looks every single time you do eyeshadow. So I wanted to kind of bring together all my favorite tips into one video for you guys, and a lot of you guys have been asking for a tutorial. So I'm kind of doing a tutorial on one of my most requested looks, which was this heart look that I posted on my Instagram a while ago. A lot of you guys have been requesting a video of that one. So it's kind of a tutorial, kind of not. It's mostly just a video advising on techniques. And I'm always evolving in my artistry. So I think it's always important to learn new things, and I'm definitely still learning. These are the things that I've kind of learned in my last couple months of doing makeup, and I've really just kind of evolved my entire skill level with these tips. I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope it makes sense in some sort of way. I am filming the intro and the outro on a different day because I was so embarrassed by the fact that my skin looked horrible that day. So I have been getting so much stress acne lately because I have like final exams and stuff. I have so many exams for the last 2 weeks and so of my semester, so I'm really just I'm going crazy. I have my first exam tomorrow and my skin has been looking nasty. So throughout the entire demo tutorial part of the video, my skin is looking pretty bad and I could only watch it for so long, so I wanted to just kind of refilm the intro and the outro so you could see another eye look, just so you can see how I do my eyeshadow and different things I do, and just because I couldn't look at my skin anymore. So I am sorry about that for the sudden change in makeup throughout the video. And I'm self-conscious sometimes. Sometimes I do trash entire videos just because I don't like how I look in the video. So I'm trying to get better about it. I'm trying to be a little bit more self-confident, but it's still something I struggle with. And I think it's always important to be aware of that and just be open about that. So yeah, I apologize for the sudden switch in makeup looks in this video, but at least you get to see two different makeup looks. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see more makeup looks that I create, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. You can see makeup looks like this one pretty much posted every single day. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's get right into the demo. So my first tip for you guys is to always use an eyelid primer. My favorite one is the Urban Decay Primer Potion in the shade Fix. Personally, I prefer primer over concealer just because concealer always creases on my eyelid. I just find that my eye looks, now that I use primer, have been so much more pigmented. They blend out so much easier, and I think the primer is the perfect base for every single eye look. I could never do the pigmented eye looks I do without a good base underneath, just because it keeps the eye looks in place, keeps everything from creasing and moving around on the eyes, and it's just a base is so fundamental to your eye look, so I think it's really important that you pick out a good quality one. This one I mentioned in my Ride or Die video. 100% of the proceeds of this primer potion go to the Urban Decay Ultraviolet Initiative, which is to help women in need, so it's a really amazing product with an amazing cause behind it. I just applied this one. I forgot that I was going to apply it on camera. So basically what you do is you take this, you just swipe it onto your eyelids like concealer. You don't need a ton. And then you take a kind of like fluffier blending brush and you just kind of softly blend it out. You want to be a little bit more light-handed because obviously it's your eyelid. You don't want to like tear any skin, but just gently blending it out so you get a nice opaque base. It should dry down to a nice matte finish, and then you are ready to apply your eyeshadow. All right, and then tip number 2 for you guys is to know when and when not to set your eyelid primer. So there's different types of situations that I like to set my eyelid primer. I know a lot of people right now on YouTube don't like to set theirs just because it kind of makes your pigment stick down a lot more and just be a little bit more pigmented. However, there are certain formulas that I like to set my eyelid primer with and certain formulas I like to skip setting. My kind of rule of thumb is with a lighter, more powdery formula, you do want to set it to protect it from getting muddy. So for example, the Anastasia formula is very, very blendable and very powdery. So that one I find that I do need to set down my eyelid primer, otherwise the powderiness of the shadow will kind of cling down in certain areas, depositing more pigment in one area. So you'll kind of get a muddy look. With thicker formulas with a little bit more density to them, for example, like the new Morphe formula, which is in the Pro palettes, and then just like other colorful shadows, I don't like to set my primer because the more pigment you can get to stick down, the better. So if I'm doing a nice smoky look and I'm kind of wanting everything to be nice and diffused on the eyes, I will set my eyelid primer just because everything's a little bit easier to blend out. You'd rather have nicely blended shadows than something that's very pigmented but also very muddy. And if I'm doing a very colorful look where I'm not going in with a bunch of transition shades and maybe I'm just going in with one base shade and then one darker shade, I will actually refrain from setting my eyelids because then the color can stick down. You don't have to worry too much about like a lot of blending just because you're not going in with like 4 or 5 transition shades, and it just looks very nice and pigmented. So that is my little trick. Know when to set your eyelid primer and know when to not set your eyelid primer. With this look, since I am going in with a pretty monochromatic like matte crease shades, I think I'm not going to set my eyelid primer just because I'm going in with shades that look very similar. But if you're going in with a very light shade and then a very dark shade, if you're going to like deepen up the outer V, you do want to set your eyelid primer. I really hope that made sense, but with this particular eye look, I will not set the eyelid primer. Alright, so tip number 3 is know when to use the right brush to get the right effect. As my skill level has evolved, I've kind of been able to pinpoint what brushes I need for what exact task. So I used to go in with the same brush for pretty much everything, blending, packing on shadows. It was kind of bad, and my eye looks reflected that because I was using the same brush for purposes that the brush wasn't necessarily meant for. So I've kind of been able to fine tune basically what effect I want and then figure out what brush I want to use for that. So when I'm working with neutrals and I'm wanting to do something that's a little bit more smoky, that has a lot more blending to it, for my transition shades, I go in with a blending brush. My favorite one is the Elizabeth Mott blending brush. This one is beautiful. I use synthetic bristles on all my brushes because I don't like using natural bristles. They're just kind of hard to work with. They can be kind of scratchy on the face, and I prefer just the softer bristles, and of course synthetic bristles are always cruelty free. So when I'm working with softer colors, I want a more blended out effect, or if I'm doing neutrals, I will go for a more blending brush to do my crease shades. Whereas if I'm wanting something a little bit more high impact, if I'm doing like a colorful look, or if I'm doing something very, very pigmented where I want to pack on a ton of shadow and then just kind of lightly blend at the edges, I'll go in with something a little bit more precise like this one. This one is the Glamour Dolls number 10 brush. It is a very small, kind of precise, fluffy crease brush. It has a little bit of tapered effect to it, so it kind of blends out your shadows as you go, but this is amazing for packing on very colorful shadows. So whenever I do a very colorful look on my Instagram, you can bet that I use this brush to do my crease shades. I am doing a very nice blended kind of soft look, so I do want to go in with something that's going to be a little bit more soft. I'm going to be using this blending brush for my crease shades. Okay, so for my first few crease shades, I'm going to go in with the Beauty Creations Tease Me palette. This one I think I mentioned in my Shop Hush haul. I really do enjoy this one. So here are the colors in here, obviously very romantic, kind of pinky tone. I actually really like the formula of this one, and the crease shades are really nice for getting a nice soft pink look. I'm going to start with a shade here called Orgasm. It is a nice like light pink transition shade. And now here's where tip number 4 comes in. You need to hold your brushes at the very, very end of the handle. This can seem counterintuitive, but it gives you a lot more control over the motions of the brush. You might think that going like this, kind of like holding it like a pencil, will give you a lot more control. It's just going to make everything look a lot more harsh. You are exerting a lot more pressure of your hand when you're holding it like this. If you hold it down here at the end of the brush, you're kind of just letting the bristles do their job. Holding the brush at the end, just going to go in, lightly kind of wipe in circular motions, just going to blend this shade into the crease. I start in the inner corner and then I kind of move outwards. Don't be afraid to kind of dip back into your palette. I know it seemed kind of weird, like you might be using a bit more product, but trust me, you're going in with such a small amount on the brush each time. It's really a lot more important to build up your shadows with each application. You don't want to go in with like a ton of pigment at first shock, because then it's going to be really hard to blend out. So again, just holding the brush at the very end of the handle, letting the bristles do the work for you in blending out the shadow, and just creating a really nice soft pink wash in the crease. To add a little more dimension, I'm going to go into the shade here called Nudes, also a kind of soft pink nude shade, and just applying that right below where I applied Orgasm. Tip number 5 I have for you guys is to blend everything out afterwards. So I actually like to go in with a nice clean blending brush. This one does not have any product on it whatsoever, and I just like to diffuse the edges of my eyeshadow. So I kind of go over where I had my shadow and just go over the edges. This will kind of help diffuse everything a little bit more. Granted, your initial blending should already do most of the work for you. This is just to get extra diffusion and make a nice soft look. So this is good if you went in a little overzealous with your shadows, or if you're going in with a more pigmented shade. But since I went in with such a light shade, I don't think I need to do this one, but it's just another tip that I like to share with you guys. So now I'm going to add on the kind of reddish pink shade that I used that was most pigmented. So for that, I'm going to be using a little bit more densely packed brush, and I mentioned this one, it's the Glamour Dolls number 10. This one I mentioned earlier, it's kind of more densely packed, but it still has the nice fluffy bristles, so it's good for blending out the shadows, but still depositing a lot of pigment onto the eyes. For the rest of the look, I'm using a palette that I've had the opportunity to try out for the last couple weeks. They sent me this one in advance, and it just came out on May 1st, I believe. So this is the new Deco Scarlet edition number 8 palette. Every 2 months I collaborate with a new like beauty influencer to create a new palette. So this month they're collaborated with Kim Tai. Deco Scarlet's basically a like beauty subscription service, I believe, where you get every 2 months you get a new palette, and I think it's $29.95, so pretty affordable. You're getting a new palette and a lip product. And this month they came out with a palette palette, and they also came out with a lip gloss. I love this lip gloss. I will apply it later on in this video, but this has been one of my favorite new products lately. This is the palette. It says Dream on the front, and Kim Tai created this palette. Then here are the colors. You get 3 eyeshadows. You have 2 mattes and then 1 shimmer. You also get a highlighter and a blush. And then you also get 2 lip products. I like that they have it kind of in a separate area so it doesn't get mixed with the powders. But here are the products. I know some people don't really like panned lip products, but I personally love them. I love my Anastasia lip palette, so this one is actually a really good fit for me. I'm gonna use the shade Crown right here and just kind of lightly going in with the brush. And first, I like to pat down the color. This is really good for getting a nice pigmented deposit of shadow. You want to kind of do the patting motion first to get the product on there, and then once you don't have a lot of product on your brush anymore, you can start blending it out. So I'm just doing the patting right now. This shade is gorgeous. It's a really nice pinky kind of reddish shade. And I don't really do tutorials that often on my channel, so I wanted to use 2 palettes I normally never talk about on my channel. Obviously this Kim Tai palette is new, so I don't talk about this one at all because I haven't been able to for the past couple weeks. But the other Beauty Creations palette, I genuinely do love that palette. I just don't use it very often or talk about it very often here on my channel. So I want to use those products so you could see how they work in action because they genuinely are amazing products. This palette, from what I've been testing out, it's not like the best formula in the world. Obviously, there's amazing eyeshadow formulas out there. I think Anastasia is one of the best ones. That's kind of like a mid-price range. And this palette subscription with the gloss, it's $30 every 2 months. Overall, the quality is pretty good. I would say it is worth the $30 if you like the colors. If you don't like this particular palette though, when you sign up, you can get a different palette that they already did. So you can pick your palette if you don't really like these colors. I think the colors are really pretty. It's a good formula. It's not the best one in the world, but it is a good quality formula and it blends very well. I've deposited a good amount of the pink shade and I have nothing left on my brush. So I'm just gonna go in and kind of diffuse the edges of the kind of pink shade here. So I'm lightly diffusing it out. Since I don't have a lot of product on the brush, I'm actually kind of winging it out to the right, kind of extending it by my brows, and this will kind of create a nice winged effect. I have pretty small eyes naturally, as you can see from the opening clip of this tutorial. I do have a very small eye shape. So I like to kind of enhance the shape of my eyes with eyeshadow, and this technique will kind of make your smaller eyes a little bit bigger. Taking more of that crown shade and kind of just bringing it in to the inner corner of the eye, not using quite as much as I did on the outer corner because obviously it is more of a deepening shade, but this is just going to add a little bit more cohesion to the look just because we're getting that nice diffusion of pink pigment across the eye. A little bit more of this right by the inner corner. Again, taking that clean blending brush, just kind of diffusing everything out. And my next tip for you guys is to use a base when you use shimmery shadows. So personally, whenever I do like a cut crease or when I'm applying shimmers on the lid, I actually like to use concealer first. So you could technically do a cut crease just taking a flat shader brush and then applying your shimmer shade in like a cut crease fashion. But I find that adding a little bit of base underneath it makes the shimmer shade show up a lot more pigmented and just a little bit brighter. So I like to have that extra pop. So I do go in with a little bit of concealer on my little brush here, and I'm just gonna cut the crease right now. This is just going to give your shadow something to stick to and kind of just be a little bit more bright and pigmented. So that is my crease cut. This is just going to give us a nice base to work with the shimmer shadow. That brings me to my next tip. When I work with the shimmer shadow, I want to get full pigmentation out of it. So if I'm going in with a shimmer shadow or a foiled shadow, I always use a wet flat shader brush. I know that some people just don't want to go wet their brush. It can seem like a little bit of effort, but trust me, it always pays off. This is the only way that I use any shimmer shadow. You have to use them wet to get the full pigmentation and the full like foil out of them. I've never found a shimmer shadow that performs better dry than wet, so I just always do it out of habit, just wet my brush a little bit, and this will help you get just amazing pigmentation out of your shadows. So I'm going into the shade here called Enchanted from the Kim Tai palette. This is a beautiful kind of rosy pink duochrome shade with a little bit of gold in there as well, so I like this one a lot. And I'm just going to pat it on at first on top of where I put the concealer, and this is going to create such a beautiful lid shade for your cut crease. I'm going to just go back in with a little bit more crown and kind of blend the outer edge of the cut crease in with the matte shadows. The next tip I have for you guys is actually layering shadows. That can give you one of the most beautiful effects. So normally when you see me with a shimmer on my lid, especially my Instagram photos, usually it is multiple shimmers from the same palette. I like to layer different shimmers. The Deck of Scarlet palette only has one like shimmer shade. I could use the highlighter, but this one is a little bit more gold tone, so I will use that later. But I'm actually gonna go back into the Tease Me palette, and I'm gonna use some other shimmer shades in here just to give a little bit more dimension to the lid. So first off, I'm gonna go into the shade here called Lust. It is a beautiful kind of rose champagne pink shade. This is very, very foiled and very beautiful. So I'm just gonna take this one and just dab it right in the beginning of the cut crease. This is going to add a little bit more lightness and brightness and dimension to the inner corner of the cut crease. And I just love the kind of ombre fade effect that it gives. I don't even know if it's picking up on camera, but this just gave a lot more brightness effect to the inner corner. So it's gonna kind of go from the very, very light champagne shade to the beautiful like kind of rose gold pink shade in the middle. And then now I'm also gonna go into the shade here called Pinch Me. It's like deep burgundy, and just gonna add this to the very, very outer part of where the shimmer and the matte meets. And this will kind of blend the shimmer shades into the matte shades because it is a nice burgundy red, and it kind of blends in with the shade Crown from the Kim Tai palette and just makes everything look so much more diffused. So I like this a lot. I'm just gonna take a little bit of Enchanted here on my finger. Totally optional choice. You don't have to do this with your finger at all, but just dab a little bit more onto the center. This will just bring a little bit more brightness to the middle. So we're almost done with this eye look, but my favorite thing to finish off an eye look, just to add that extra touch that brings everything to the next level, is to add glitter. So I know that's kind of an over-the-top thing. You don't have to do this one, especially if you want a more natural look. But personally, when I'm doing Instagram makeup or when I just want to add that finishing touch, if an eye look is just missing something and I know that it just needs something extra to bring it to the next level, I use glitter. I'm going to be using this rose gold glitter from JCat Beauty. It's a very nice fine glitter, very comparable to the MAC Cosmetics glitters. And then for my glitter glue, I use the e.l.f. glitter glue. It's so inexpensive. It's, I think, $2, and it just works so well. So adding a pop of glitter is my favorite way to kind of complete any cut crease look. Just adding a little line of glitter on the top of the cut crease just brings everything together. So I can't talk to you guys while I do this one. I'm just adding a nice line of glitter glue so I know where to put the glitter. And then just with a still wet brush, I'm going to take the glitter and just apply it where I put the glitter glue. Okay, so that is the glitter applied. I'm just gonna go in with the shade Fairy Dust. This is gonna be my inner corner and brow bone highlight. It's a beautiful highlighter, a little bit too dark for my actual like face. Just to make it all right for my face, I gotta mix this one with a white highlighter. But for the inner corner and the brow bone, it is a beautiful, beautiful highlight. I also have to do my lower lash line. So I'm gonna go into the Morphe Y22 brush, just go back into the shade Crown. I'm using this one a lot in this tutorial. And then I'm taking a little bit of the blush here called Tiara. This blush is a little bit too bright for my cheeks, but I do like using it as an eye color. So just kind of fluffing this right underneath where I put Crown. And now I'm gonna peel off the tape where I have the heart and reveal that little negative space heart right there. Alright guys, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys got something out of the tips I gave you guys. It was a really fun video to film, and I did want to talk about the Deck of Scarlet gloss because I mentioned that I was going to talk about it later in the video, but then I did delete the outro clip. So here is the gloss. It's really, really pretty. I genuinely love this one. I think it's probably my favorite product from the entire collection. Such a good formula. I would actually compare the feel of the formula very similarly to the Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb. It's not like the same color or the same like formula by any means because that one doesn't have a lot of glitter in it. This one has quite a bit of shimmer. It's kind of like a frostier pink gloss, but it's so beautiful on the lips. I'm wearing it today. It just glides on so easily. It doesn't feel sticky or anything. Just one of the best formulas I've ever tried, and the packaging is so luxe too, so it's really, really pretty. I love this one. And I think that's all I have to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe down below, and also make sure you're following me on Instagram to see my makeup looks. And if you made it to the very end, I love you so much. Thank you so much for watching my channel. Bye.